Hi.
In order to protest, you have to have a permit. We rented the permit.
Oh, we're not protesting.
Is this
We're just spreading the gospel.
No, we're not.
You can do that.
We're not protesting.
protesting anything.
We
We're
never
just
protest.
exercising our free speech and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yep.
You can do that at the courthouse square.
No, we can do that here.
So is
This
this
is legal.
limitation on public property for us to share
This
the
is
gospel?
public property. This is a rented space that we have paid to rent.
This looks like
It's a public
sidewalk.
event.
This is not. This is part of the park.
Is this not a public event?
It's not closed off. The public's free to enter.
Close to the public?
Yeah, so
We would-
you have to be a vendor as part
We
of
want
the
to.
event.
We want.
We're not vending anything.
Know the
To
rules.
set up anything at all, you have to be a part of
No,
the
we're not setting up anything.
No, we don't. We could set up in this park anytime we want with signs. It's called freedom of speech. Yep.
So she is a Parks Department employee.
Mm-hmm.
She's advocating for the Parks Department.
Yeah, I understand.
And what she says is the rules that need to be followed. So
Well, but her rules can't trump the Constitution of the United States. And they can't trample upon the liberties of citizens.
you can say all that stuff. That's fine.
Okay.
It's not
The
just
rules
stuff.
are what we're going to go by. If you
It's
have
the
a problem
law.
with it, you can talk to the Parks Department director on Monday. Otherwise, you need to leave.
What's going to happen if we don't, sir?
We're going to have another conversation
About what? Now, I'm not asking for weird things. I'm asking for very specifics. What are you going to do as an officer of the law?
Department director has her here to convey what their rules are.
Uh-huh.
So that's what's going to happen today.
I heard that she has said some things, but I don't understand why I have to oblige by them. So I'm still asking, what are you going to do as officers of the law? Those who enforce law, by the way, not her rules. Okay. There is no law that says you can't have freedom of speech in the park. In fact, it's constitutionally protected.
We're not protesting.
We're not protesting. We're here to minister the gospel of Jesus Christ as Christians.
To share the gospel on a day that you would like to do that.
Now we're free to do that today too.
That's not how we're called.
Do that.
We're free to do that here today as well. It's a constitutionally protected matter. There is lots of case law on this. It is a traditional public forum. It is protected by Constitution and case law. So what I'm asking you to, as officer of the law specifically, what are you going to do should we not leave? How are you going to handle that situation? Because I need to know what you're going to do.
Hang tight.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. As many of you guys know, I'm a law enforcement trainer instructor. I train and instruct military and law enforcement all over the country on various law enforcement disciplines to include constitutional law, case law, patrol tactics, use of force, advanced criminal investigations, etc. And we're going to do a video breakdown of this. When I saw this, I couldn't help myself. I was like, this is going to be a great video to kind of talk about and go over the various case laws, because there's case laws that were obviously mentioned, but there was no in-depth analysis. So that's perfect. That's what we do here. So for starters, let's just start this off with what are we looking at? It appears we're looking at a group of Christian men that are preaching the gospel, and they appear to be doing it at the same place, at the same time, where LGBTQ, whatever, insert whatever letters are up to now. I really don't know. Really don't care. But anyway, insert whatever letters are there, venue. And the LGBTQ side is like, hey, we paid for this venue in the regard of, we got a permit to do our thing here, and therefore we don't want you guys here, right? And as you guys already know, right, public forum, a state park, or a park that's a municipal park is a public venue, is a public space. And as people that are preaching the word of God and the gospel, that would not fall under something that would need, for example, a vending permit or licensure, etc. You don't need a license to preach the word of God in the United States of America, at least not yet. And so again, we are clearly looking at one side, right, the LGBTQ side, where it's like, hey, we have got and paid and utilized resources to get this venue. And then you have the other side, which is the Christians that are preaching, that says, well, it's great, we have a First Amendment, and I'm gonna do it anyway. And so what happens when these situations kind of arise, obviously the LGBTQI part of the equation is like, this is unacceptable, therefore immediately we need the state. Because let's be honest, that's what law enforcement is. You're calling the state into your affairs. And so law enforcement is called. Now, I also think it's important that we kind of understand the dichotomy of what we aren't really looking at, which is interesting. There's no alleged or nobody is making affirmations of these people needing to be detained. Interestingly enough, a lot of times with these conversations, with these law enforcement encounters, there's a detainment process, gathering of identification or affirming they need identification. Kind of putting us in a Brown v. Texas 1979 kind of issue, and that's not alleged here. In fact, the LGBTQI people just want these Christian preaching people gone. They don't really care to identify them, and law enforcement has no excuse me. Law enforcement has no desire to identify them either. They just want them gone as well. And so again, it's interesting because we kind of, our pivoting point here is, we're jumping straight into probable cause. As you can see here, what is probable cause? Well, probable cause exists when at the moment of an arrest or warrant, law enforcement has articulable facts and observations that will lead a prudent, reasonable person to believe that a crime was in the process of being committed, had been committed, or was going to be committed. And so there's so much case law, everything from Gerstein versus Pugh to Michigan v. Filippo, 1979. Again, there's so much case law that affirms what probable cause is. And so the real interesting thing here is there's no crimes that are alleged. And as we're going to talk about here in a little bit, preaching the word of God is not a crime. Again, at least not yet. Now with that being said, if Christians don't actually stand up for their beliefs, UK is not that far away, right? And people have already been arrested for it in this country for preaching the gospel. So, but as of right now, preaching the gospel in a public place is not a crime, and nor is law enforcement alleging. Again, law enforcement keeps trying to allege these rules, and the park director may not want you here, X, Y, and Z. And this is coming from a police sergeant. Now, let me just caveat this with, and again, this is just my personal viewpoint. And my personal viewpoint, I'm telling you right now, as this is going to be very I mean, of all the things I've said already that you think are controversial, this is going to be the most controversial thing. And until law enforcement culture decides that they're going to step up and change, let me just be very clear about the law enforcement here. And I say this as somebody who is law enforcement actively. I do. I'm an active criminal investigator. I'm a state agent. I teach the advanced criminal investigation course for my state. I teach constitutional law. I do this at a very varsity level. And I'll say this to say, I say all that to say this. As somebody who in a prior world was a police sergeant, I can tell you that if you're a police sergeant and you have the inability to ascertain in a very quick timeline what reasonable suspicion or probable cause, not only are you a worthless sergeant, you're also a worthless police officer. And again, that's going to be very controversial. I know law enforcement is not going to like me saying that. And I get, there's a lot of law enforcement that really dislike my viewpoints on that. And again, I just don't care. I don't have to care. The truth is, especially as a patrol officer, your bread and butter should be ascertaining reasonable articulable suspicion and probable cause. I mean, that's your job. Your job is to go on call to calls for service and quickly ascertain if a crime has been committed. That is the unique job of a patrol officer. So to have a police sergeant that's here that is unable to articulate himself and unable to have an adult conversation just goes to show how incompetent and how worthless he really is. And again, I don't know the guy. If he was standing in front of me, I would tell him the exact same thing. Again, it is what it is, right? I mean, just part of this job is actually knowing your job. And so, again, I don't know who this guy is, and that's just my personal feelings on that, right? Not my professional feelings, just my personal feelings. Just worthless. Absolutely worthless. And so we have to think about it. And I think what we should be really trying to understand at this point is, okay, so there are no crimes that are being alleged to be committed. We know, and we'll talk about preaching the gospel in modern day 2025 is not a crime yet. So where are we? Well, we're at a freedom of speech, bypass here. So let's talk about our freedom of speech Supreme Court case precedents. I think Cohen v. California 1971 is a great one to start with. And that says that states must have a better reason for concern for general disturbing of the peace when they ban displaying an expletive in a public space. In this case, it was somebody that had F the draft shirt on. And so, again, that's the Supreme Court. That's SCOTUS saying, yeah, you can't just ban somebody for disturbing this for a disturbance if it's just foul language. These Christians, I don't believe their signs have foul language, but even if they did, that wouldn't be enough to arrest them. And so, again, they have signs. Let's just take it for what it really is here. They have signs displaying Bible verses that LGBTQ people probably don't like. Again, that's not enough for an arrest, and that's not me saying it, that's the United States Supreme Court saying it. It is what it is. The next one I think is great. We all know the flag burning case law, Texas v. Johnson, 1989. Again, United States Supreme Court held that flag burning constitutes symbolic speech that's protected by the First Amendment. The Supreme Court further held that freedom of speech protects actions that society may find very offensive, but society's outrage alone is not justification for the suppression of free speech. Again, Texas v. Johnson, 1989. And again, this perfectly, again, encompasses what we're seeing because, trust me, I get it. Seeing verses that go, even though, and that's the funny thing, even though, presumably these LGBTQI, again, insert letters because I don't know them, they may say they don't believe in God, but when they see verses that, go against their worldview, they're so outraged that, hey, we need law enforcement to come and remove these people. Again, that's just the world that we find ourselves in. The next one that I think it's really important that we look at is this one that you can see here, Matthew Meneke versus City of Seattle. So basically, Matthew Meneke was a pastor, and his speech was not received well by his audience on two separate occasions in June 2022 at an abortion rally and an LGBTQ pride event. Meneke sought to read Bible passages to attendees gathered in the city of Seattle. When those attendees began to abuse and physically assault Meneke, Seattle police officers asked Meneke to move and ultimately arrested him. When he refused, rather than deal with the wrongdoers directly, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals found his arrest to be unconstitutional. Which is huge because the Ninth Circuit is not I would not say it's the friendliest circuit out there. And so all this to say, guys and gals that are watching, looking at this, it's clear that there's not, I can't articulate a crime that has occurred. And again, we have very good SCOTUS and even Ninth Circuit case precedents that's going to show and demonstrate, reading the Bible in public and holding up Bible verses in public is not a crime. It's not something you can't lawfully arrest somebody for that crime. And so, again, this is going to be one of those things where the rationale behind why the officers are acting the way they're acting, and even when asked directly, hey, let's just, officer, if I don't, what are you going to do? And again, you guys have heard me say this before. When a police officer says, well, then we're going to have a different conversation. For me, and again, I'm only speaking personally, when I hear that, I hear, I don't know what I'm doing. That's what I hear. I hear incompetency. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just saying something because I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm actually going to say here in a second. That's what I get. I hear I'm incompetent. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do with my hands. That's what I hear. Just being honest with you, just being 100% forward and transparent. That's what I hear. And so for me, again, everybody's going to do things different, but these reasons like this, when there's no probable cause, no reasonable articulable suspicion, this is 100% why I have my detainment template. Now here, pretty much swap out Brown v. Texas for Michigan v. Filippo, 1979, right? So same year, just swap out Brown v. Texas again for Michigan v. Filippo, and it's the same thing. Am I under arrest? Yes or no? And very quickly go through it. Hey, I don't consent to searches or seizures of my person. United States v. Jones. if you wish to violate my rights, I keep my wallet and identification credentials here. For your safety and my safety, I'm going to keep my hands on my head with my fingers interlaced. And this time I will unambiguously invoke my Fifth Amendment rights pursuant to Burgess v. Tompkins 2010. Right? That is why I created this template. Because, again, if the officer really is going to arrest me at this point, man, go for it. Honestly. Everybody kind of has their line in the sand. Everybody kind of has their thing. Man, I applaud these guys. They didn't seem like they were afraid to take the ride. And I don't know, because obviously the video didn't go that far into it. But, at the end of the day, as soon as people, Christians, secular people, whoever you are, regardless of your political affiliation or your religious beliefs, if you're not violating the law and you're not breaking the law, at some point you just have to say, I'm not afraid to take that ride, Because, again, if this was me in that situation, if you're wanting to arrest me for preaching the gospel, I would love to retire early. Let's do it. Let's do it, Sergeant. I don't know the law. You know what I mean? And so, again, I thought this was a brilliant display. Again, I wouldn't have exactly said everything these people said. Obviously, I would have utilized more case law. I would have actually utilized the case law and just forced the officer into the predicament of, are you going to violate my rights or not, right? But that's neither here nor there. But again, regardless if you're a religious Christian person, regardless if you're a secular person, regardless of who you are, we have constitutional rights for a reason. And, you should not fear reprisal of your government when you don't violate the law, when you don't break the law. And so I think this is brilliant, and I expect to see more people, more activists acting this way. I thought these gentlemen were very professional, and I thought, at the end of the day, they are literally putting the officer in a position of, are you going to violate constitutional rights or not? And if you're a police officer, you should have zero fear of that. I have zero fear of violating people's rights because I don't put myself in any position where that would happen. But also, I realize that people look at what I do in law enforcement, and I can do so much more than what the average person even realizes, just because I know what the law is. And so the more you know, the better effective you're going to be, both as a citizen and as a law enforcement officer. So again, I think it's important that we understand that we mesh these elements up, because they are important. Well, I hope this video was helpful for you guys, but most importantly, tell me what you guys think. Tell me guys what you think of the case law breakdown. What do you think of these situations? I want to know, honestly, how should all parties have handled it? How do you think the LGBTQ people should have handled it? How do you think the religious people preaching should have handled it? And how do you think the law enforcement should have handled it overall? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, guys, long live the Republic.